Hi, my name is Jera. I teach people how to garden and grow food. Today I want to show you guys how to germinate loofah because it can be a little difficult since it has such a hard shell to get good germination sometimes. So I'm going to show you my pro tips to getting them to germinate plus a secret gardening hack. It's something that I build that really speeds up the germination process. If you've never grown loofah before, I highly suggest that you grow it at least once, especially if you're in a warmer zone like zones 8 and up. To be honest, I kind of avoided growing loofah for many years because I thought the only purpose for it was to harvest these gourds, peel off the skin, and use the loofah sponges inside to make crafts and things like that. But someone gave me some free seeds and I decided to give it a try, and now I'm obsessed. I will grow them every single year. I learned how to make these really cool loofah sponge exfoliating bath bars because, hey, if I'm gonna grow it, I'm definitely gonna use it. And this was a lot of fun to make, and it wasn't difficult at all. I do have a YouTube video to show you how to make these same exact exfoliating loofah sponge soap bars if you want to give it a try or find some kind of use for it. But to be honest with you, even if you're not a crafty person, you're not going to harvest these loofah sponges to use in any way, grow it just because it's a beautiful plant. It is a show-stopping plant in my garden. It gets really huge. It produces loads of beautiful big flowers that attract a lot of pollinators to my garden. You may have not known that there's actually two types of loofahs, and one variety is better than the other for the purpose of sponges. Now, there is an angled or rigid type of loofah that when you look at it, it's not smooth like this one. This is the smooth loofah. It actually has like rigid sides. That one isn't the best for loofah sponges because it can get really hard to peel the skin for that. However, the angled loofah is the best for eating. Yes, you can eat loofah, not when they're mature like this, but when they are in their immature light green stage, when they're no more than about 7 inches long, you can harvest the gourds and you can eat them. Actually, a lot of people say it tastes better than zucchini. So if you want to try eating them, make sure you get the angled variety. You can still eat the smooth loofahs when they're still small, about no more than 7 inches, but most people say the flavor and texture of the angled loofahs are much better for eating. The smooth loofah Latin name has the term cylindrica in it, so that's how you make sure that your seeds are for the smooth variety if you want the loofah sponges. If you're looking for seeds for the smooth variety, you can find some on my website, jerasgarden.com. The issue with trying to get loofah to germinate properly is the fact that it is a very hard shelled seed. So there's certain things you can do to really help soften up the shell to speed up the germination process. Here's a close-up of what the seeds look like. They do come in black and sometimes white, so don't be alarmed if your seeds don't look black like this. I have seen cultivars that have more of a white colored shell. So let's talk about when you should start your seeds. I recommend that you start seeds for loofah 2 months before your last average spring frost date. So for me here in Orlando, Florida, I'm zone 9B. My average last spring frost date is about the middle of February. So I'm starting these 2 months before. It's still kind of cold outside. We're still getting cold fronts in the months of December and January. I start these indoors. If we have some warm weather where temperatures are above 60, then I'll bring them outdoors. Since these plants get pretty large by the time they are ready for transplant, I highly recommend that you just immediately plant them in something big. This is a 4-inch pot, or you could use a solo cup. That way you can prevent the whole step of potting up. I personally hate wasting my time potting up, so whenever I'm growing crops that are kind of big when they're ready to transplant, I just immediately sow the seeds in a larger container to begin with. That way I don't have to waste my time potting up. Loofah is a tropical plant and it requires a long, warm growing period in order to produce for you. That is why I recommend that you get an early start by sowing the seeds indoors and immediately transplanting the plants out as soon as your last spring frost date has passed. If you're growing loofah to harvest the sponges, it's going to take somewhere between 6 to 8 months from seed for those gourds to be completely dried out to harvest out the sponges. If you're growing loofah to eat, honestly, from seed all the way to something that is ready to be harvested for eating, that means you haven't allowed the gourd to get more than about 7 inches long, you're probably going to start eating anywhere between 3 to 4 months. Like I said, these seeds have a tough shell, so it can get really hard for water to penetrate into the seed to initiate the germination process. So as the first step, I highly recommend that you nick the shell, and I'm going to show you how to do that. What you're doing is basically cutting a little hole into the shell, which is going to allow water to come through, and that will greatly speed up the germination process. To nick the shell, I'm just going to use some nail clippers. This is really easy to do. I recommend you don't nick the bottom of the shell because that's usually where the roots will develop out of, right? It'll sprout some roots, or that taproot will usually come out of the bottom here. And I don't recommend that you nick the top because that's usually where the first set of leaves and the stem will sprout out of. I say normally because in some cases it's just going to sprout or root in random spots, but in general, leave the top and the bottom of the seed alone. To nick it, you're just going to take your nail clippers and you're just going to cut a little hole on the side of the shell. I don't know how well you can see that, but I have nicked the hole on the side of the shell, and you can see a little bit of the white interior. After you have finished cutting a little hole in the side of each seed, you're going to have to soak those seeds in warm water for 24 hours. That will begin the process of just softening up the shells to help the seed germinate. My preferred way of doing that is just putting warm water in an old glass jar. I like to use these liquid chalk markers to label my jars because it rubs off pretty easily. So put the date on here so you don't forget. And you're going to fill this up with some warm water, put all of your seeds in here, and let it soak for at least 24 hours. Like I said, I do have a secret method to getting my loofah to germinate really, really quickly. And ever since I started doing this, I nearly get 100% germination. Before we continue though, if you're enjoying this video and would like to learn more about gardening, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you get notified of every time I post new videos. So after your seeds have soaked for 24 hours, you're going to drain them out and we're going to sow them in their pots. Like I said, use something big, like at least a 4-inch pot, or a solo cup is even better. And these seeds are pretty big, so you can sow the seeds about 1 inch deep. I recommend you put at least 2 seeds in each pot. That way if one doesn't germinate, you still have success with the other seed. So we're just going to take our seed, drop them in there, cover them up with some soil, pack it down so that the seeds make good contact with the soil, and then keep this nice and watered. To get good germination, loofah seeds require 2 things: warmth and humidity. Now here's my special trick so that you can keep these seeds warm and create an environment with high humidity. You're going to need a heat mat. If you don't have any heat mats, you can follow the link below in the description to Amazon. It's the same exact heat mats that I use. Then you're going to need an old box. I recommend an old plastic box because if you use like a cardboard box, it will kind of break down due to all the moisture that's going on in here. So I really like to use just an old plastic box. You're going to set that box over your heat mat. So that heat mat is going to keep the environment inside of this box really warm. Then you're going to take all of your pots and you're going to put them inside of this box. You're going to want to seal the top of the box to trap in all of the heat and moisture. I like to use aluminum foil, but you can use saran wrap, you know, a lid, a piece of cardboard, like whatever, just to keep this sealed and really trap in the heat and humidity. Typically, loofah will sprout anywhere between 7 to 14 days. Using this method, I have got next day germination. It's kind of crazy, but usually what I see is 3 days is normal. Sometimes I'll get next day. As soon as your seeds have germinated and sprouted, they're going to require light, and that is the time where you're going to take them out of this box. Since it probably will still be very cold outside, I like to set them under some grow lights. In my case, I don't use like official grow lights. I like to use shop lights. Make sure you put the light very, very close to the level of the seedling, and as the seedling grows taller, you're going to move the shop light up. If you have some days with warm weather, usually above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you can bring them outside and put them more in the direct full sun. Here in Florida, our weather fluctuates so much during the winter, so I do bring these outside a lot, but as soon as we get another cold front where the temperatures drop below 60, I bring them back inside. I'll have to make a whole nother video about transplanting loofah and how to care for the plants all the way to harvest. But this will get you started for now because it is January and February. For many of us here in the United States, we're approaching closer and closer to our last spring frost date. So just giving you guys a heads up, get started sowing your seeds indoors. And there you have it. Growing loofah is a very easy process and it's a lot of fun. If you have any questions, please comment below, or let's say you have a very favorite loofah cultivar, please let me know. I learn just as much from you guys as you do from me. Thanks for watching and happy gardening.